Hello, Nathe. Good to be back with you, my European friend. Great to talk with you. So much has happened in the last month. I mean, it's incredible the way things change constantly. I mean, in the era that we're in. So lots to talk about. Where should we begin? Maybe I think the place to start could be the we're in this now really protracted shutdown. It's approaching a record, which I think Trump already set the previous one, and Republicans are famous for this because they were doing the shutdowns even in the Obama era, although they would blame the Democrats. They would shut the government down and then say, the Democrats did it. I remember thinking, what do you mean? You guys did this. So what's your sense of where this goes? Meaning, for example, is it soon? Is it later? And also, will the Democrats be able to, somehow enable the premiums? Because the argument is that they do not want to agree to the Republicans passing it as is, because then a lot of people will have to pay a lot more for their health care. And so they're objecting to that very strenuously.
Yeah. Well, first of all, Andre, thank you for having me again on your show. It's always a pleasure. When it comes to the shutdown, I've been really struggling as far as predictions on this particular topic, and I've just talked about that on my channel, where I was not sure that there would be a shutdown, and it didn't really feel like it would be lasting. So it's been for me like a number of surprises in terms of what I see happening and what the predictions were, which sometimes is interesting to look back and understand why. It's kind of one of the major areas where I I felt like there would be a compromise, and now the energy has shifted considerably, where I do feel like it's an extreme tension, an extreme uh, force of power, and one power fighting against the other power, and no one wants to budge. This is the energy that I also felt. um, I don't see the Democrats wanting to give up the healthcare part of it, and I also feel like Trump's feeling that um, it doesn't mind the shutdown to continue a little bit more. I also felt that um, there's going to be some serious issues that I see with this shutdown. I felt like there's some real serious security, safety issues when it comes to airlines and other aspects of what the government does. And that concerns me. Like in previous reading, I've seen some concerns about the essential work not being done, and that like there could be like a drastic consequence of the shutdown that just comes and bites the administration. I said the administration because I really feel energetically that the energy goes against the Republicans and Trump in particular. And so I I feel that Trumps will have to come to the negotiation table one way or another. And so I see the end of a shutdown. Of course, there will be an end. The question is when and how. But I feel like it will be more Trump. Obviously, he would like to keep faith and not wanting to look like a loser, but I think it's going to be the one bulging first. So let's just pull a couple cards, and then I'm really interested to hear what you have to say, astrologically speaking. But let's just have a look on this shutdown, the government shutdown, what energies we have going in. So let's see. See, that first card is the Page of Pentacles. It's almost like there's a little something. The page are small, so it's almost like there's that little bulge that Trump is willing to give. The Three of Swords, like this is the American people. People are gonna lose with this. And that also ties to what I was saying earlier, like there could be an actual event or an actual situation that creates a drastic problem. Like I don't exclude that at all. One more energy about this shutdown, this one. The Wheel of Fortune. So the Wheel of Fortune is there's going to be a change of energy. So it matches what I feel. I feel like something is going to happen. The Wheel of Fortune is also October 10. So there could be like an end of October, early November shift. I feel like it's a shift is happening. And I feel like it's the Republicans giving a little something away, but trying not to lose face.
Very interesting. Yeah. Well, my sense with the theme has always been that the Democrats they picked a good topic because, first of all, because it's the human thing to do. That's the top level reasoning. They're doing something to try to prevent people from spending more than they need to spend. But the reason is that Trump has very serious health threats in his chart, and I've seen this pattern many times before. That when you in your chart, anybody's chart, when there's the theme of health, it can manifest on more than one level. And indeed, when you're a politician, this happened to Obama in '09. He had really challenging health energy, but he wasn't sick. It was because he was trying to pass the Affordable Care Act. And now, and oh, by the way, and another one, Trump in the pandemic period, he himself
Ah,
caught COVID, but the pandemic was what destroyed him because he couldn't govern properly, and
yeah.
so he was thrown out. And now he's in the same pattern again with this shutdown. The Democrats are saying, you gotta do this for the healthcare, and he is hampered because it's in his chart as a loser. It's a loser thing that he'll have to give in on some level. So maybe if combining it with what you're saying, perhaps the Democrats won't get everything, but they should get something enough that the people that are going to be most affected won't be affected as much. Maybe
Yeah.
that's what it would be. They'll throw, I don't know, some money at it, but maybe not as much money as Democrats want, or possibly maybe make a trade and say, well, we'll give you that if you give us something else. Though I don't know what it would be, to be honest, because the
Mhm.
healthcare is so essential. Yeah.
Do you get any kind of idea of a timeline for the end of this shutdown? Anything that comes across, or it's
I
hard?
I I would say your reading of it sounds pretty good because what you notice in astrology is when planets shift signs, situations shift. And yesterday, today, Neptune now just went back into Pisces. So that's one big move that changes it from where it's been in Aries for many months. It goes into Pisces now. And on November 8th, which is in the range as well, Uranus backtracks into Taurus. So the fact that you're getting these changes suggests, that there's about to be a shift. And I would think that because when we get into mid-November, there's a trine in the sky between Jupiter and Saturn that has the feeling of things going smoother on some level. So I would be very surprised if the shutdown extended, like all the way into the end of November or something like that. No, very unlikely. So your perception to me, it seems, yeah, well aligned with where the planets are, for sure.
What about the possibility of some sort of incident because of the shutdown? Does that could possibly resonate in the astrological pattern?
Yes, that can definitely resonate too because of this. I did it in a video yesterday where I talked about Trump entering a zone which correlates with shock, like just things that are shocking, where you get an event, like when sometimes, someone gets murdered or there's an explosion somewhere, or as you said, I mean, imagine if, now more and more of these air traffic controllers are staying home, and then you get airports that are not minding the planes properly. And you've seen, I was just traveling and it's pretty crazy. I mean, the plane will get behind another plane and one plane takes off and then it's barely out of the ground, and then the next plane goes, and you're thinking, how do they keep all this going without something going badly wrong? So Yeah, that fits really well because for Trump, he's in the zone now, and if anything, it's getting worse as we go toward, you know,
Right.
mid-November. That it's that Uranus energy. Uranus is the planet of yeah, the shock, the unexpected. Uh, yes, so it fits as well, and it could. You're right that that might be the thing that leads to the Trump saying, okay, all right, let's because he starts to look especially bad. I mean, already I think it's encouraging for those that dislike the way this guy governs. He's down in the low 30s already, and if he keeps going like this, it could get really. He could go all the way down to George W. Bush levels into the 20s, because he is hurting a lot of his own people with what he's doing, and that's
Yes.
the
Yeah.
the greatest danger is that this health thing, I mean, this impacts people who really need it. And they're supposed to be his most loyal followers. So,
Um,
yeah,
you mentioned people struggling. I think it's a nice segue to talk about the economy.
sure. Yes.
Because I see it in my readings and I can see those shifts people are really struggling getting jobs. And I feel like I mean, kind of the transition with what you just said, just people, a lot of Americans furloughed. That's also money that's not going into the economy.
Of course. Of course. Yeah. I mean, this is the thing that, you know, geniuses, and I say that very sarcastically, like this, they think they can come in and upend enormous systems that are, by the way, they talk against the globalists, but the system is all globalized now. You pull here, you get a problem there. So now immigration is down to zero, but a lot of jobs are also unfilled, or they can't match people up properly. You start to get all these side effects that you were not expecting, and most notably, the prices haven't gone down, the prices have gone up, and there's no end in sight from what you can tell, even though it's slow and it's chipping away. So yeah, I mean, it's not a good situation, and the numbers reflect it. And for example, look at the fact that they're now hiding the jobs numbers because the jobs numbers don't make them look good, right? This is the way this administration works. The problem they have is that we're not living in 1930s Germany. This is a media just filled to the brim environment, and you find reporters doing incredible work on background, and they bring in, look, I just learned this, and they give you people's names and so forth. And so, that they were in secret meetings, here's what happened. So it's very hard to basically hide. And so, for instance, okay, they hide the job numbers, but then there's this metric that businesses put out that tell you that there's no hiring going on. So people learn about it, and they can't hide, basically, bottom line, right?
And they know what's happening with their friends and family looking for jobs, having financial pressures, the housing market. You're right that they can hide. Um, do we need to read a little bit on the economy going forward? I'm happy to
Sure.
pull a
Yeah.
few cards.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
The U.S. economy. When I said U.S. economy, I just heard like, well, this is the global economy because of everything. Let's see, let's see what we have. See, the first card is death. So there's a transformation in the economy, but that's not a good transformation. You see the site, things are being cut. Jobs, I think job losses or job cuts when it comes to the economy. The Two of Wands, it's interesting what you see here is the globe, how this is impacting the whole globe. Six of Swords, this is a card of movement, and to me, this talks about, actually, I feel like this is about people being forced out of their homes, like people having problems keeping their homes, being out of their homes, finding another home that's maybe cheaper, like relocating to from one rental to the next. I see a lot of movements where people, and I actually do see that in my readings, people not being able to afford the rent that they have. or their mortgage, kind of same thing. So I feel like this is quite scary in terms of the consequences of this economy.
Yeah, I can totally see that. I mean, this is the thing about looking at a situation and looking for the optimistic angle, and to people that are against this form of governance, anything they see where they're failing is a good thing. But I've said many times, don't forget that this comes at a cost. It means to get beyond this difficult period we're in, we're going to be suffering more than usual because it's inevitable. I mean, let me think about the fact that he's trying to take away people's health care. The dollar is weaker. Housing costs are through the roof, and no pun intended. Um, yeah, the situation is tough, so everybody suffers. But then, if they were good, if they were, as they are, they're aspiring fascists. If they were good, then you would be more worried because you'd be thinking, "Oh my God, things are going well and they're succeeding." And yet, that to me just seems so unlikely. And I match it to the astrology because one thing is for sure that the Saturn period in Aries, there was just one exception that I found going back quite a number of years. Every time in Aries the economy doesn't do as well, and the U.S. is a Cancer country, so you get a square. So no matter what, you're going to get some contraction. It's just that here we've got people that are, in a sense, increasing the contraction, making it worse through their policies, and then it reverberates to Europe and to you know the
The
fact
globe.
that exactly. So yeah, so I can totally see what you're saying as yeah being a distinct possibility. Though remember though, all of that in the news not good for whoever's president because it gets broadcasted, and people learn about it, and just like this thing that we all just did, the No Kings protests, it started as 3 million in April, 5 million in June, 7 million in October. There's a metric that people use, which is that if a population reaches between 3 and 4%, they say 3.5%. If the 3.5% of the population is demonstrating on the streets, fascists have an incredibly hard time imposing their way on the people. Well, for the US, that would be about 11, 12 million. We're not that far,
Hey, not
it,
far,
not
not
that
far.
far. Now, that doesn't guarantee it, but it kind of shows you where it's going and why they're so panicked about it, I think, because when you hear the House leader, that pipsqueak, Mike Johnson, that total hypocrite, and he's saying, oh, these people are all insurrectionists and it's the Antifa people on the far left. No, they're not. I was there. Please, come on, it's ridiculous. Lots of people that are far from being like that were out there in large numbers, So,
Sure.
so yeah,
A side note on the economy before we switch topic is we're about to enter a very, very busy season for retail, which is Black Friday, Christmas. And this is usually where they really make their year. And so if retail doesn't do well, this has consequences. And retail employs a lot of people too. And also talking about these Christmas season, obviously Christmas is big for children. Think about toys. Where do the toys come from?
China.
Okay, then you see the inflation connection, and so that this season looks very bad from the point of view of retail sales, but also people able to afford toys for their children because there are going to be tariffs. And you saw during your European Canadian escapade that the that it went to war again with China, talking again about 100% tariffs when things were pretty set. What went through his mind?
And this is the thing, right? So, building on what you just said, saw an article today, New York Times, where they're saying Trump is banking on the fact that threatening or imposing these massive tariffs will bring China to the table because it hurts their economy. But this article was showing how China is getting around that. I mean, China is a big economy now. So they're not necessarily going to do what you expect them to do. They definitely can profit from the US, but they don't necessarily need the US as much. So they have this strategy. I have to read it a little more in order to present it in any kind of cogent way. But it sounded to me like they're not that bothered. So again, especially because of Trump's chart difficulties, would not surprise me one bit if what you said earlier about having to cave on the
Yeah,
shutdown and then having to cave on tariffs, which he's done before, by the way, because he
of
does these
course.
things with China and then he does the taco move and starts asking, oh, I'm waiting for, instead of saying like he needs to meet with Xi, but he wants to pretend that Xi is like, trying to reach toward him and he's not, so yeah, it's a sad
Oh,
situation.
she doesn't really. I mean, that's not their style either.
No.
They, like that's why they wrote Lao Tzu, The Art of War. Like they're very smart with negotiations. You know,
Mhm. Yeah, yeah, that's right. Yeah, yeah. So
very smart. Um, Staying in the US still, I think the other big topic is Epstein.
Epstein. Yeah. Well, Epstein, to me, the biggest moment to confirm something that I strongly suspect will be January when Eris stations, because Eris, this planetoid that was discovered in 2005 that bumped Pluto out of the order, and it's a warrioress, blah blah blah. This thing surfaced in June, right around when Eris was stationing, and I remember making the link and realizing, oh yeah, this thing is never going to go away now because this planet keeps stationing in these degrees for years, right? Hitting in this worst, most absolutely worst part of his chart for this. So that's going to tell me a lot. But in the meantime, even before that, yeah, you probably through your own intuition have seen how it's constantly there. You've got people like Marjorie Taylor Scream, doing her routine, and all of a sudden she's become, an advocate for the victims, which of course is a good thing. But I mean, to me, she's the enemy of my enemy. She's my friend as far as that. Other than that, I don't really care for her politics or her personality. So, but yeah, that topic is there. They won't even swear that person in, the Arizona
No,
person, because once they put her in, they have to take a vote. They're
so
scared out of
bad.
their mind. But you can see this coming because what's going to happen here is that they're going to have to open the government. They're going to have to swear her in, and then they're going to walk right into that January thing, and probably will explode in their face, in a pretty major way. So yeah, not a good scene. Although this is partly why, by the way, this is the way this guy's technique is. I think part of the reason he does outrageous things like destroying the White House is because that keeps
Out.
people focused on that.
Yeah,
He'll start a fire anywhere, no matter how destructive it is, to keep your mind on something different than what than he wants you to look at. And the key thing there is the Epstein files. Yes, for sure.
I think we're gonna talk about that. I forgot when we were like preparing another topic when we look at international is Venezuela and those boats that have been bombed. Like there's something to say about all this, but let's. But that's definitely a distraction for sure. I think. Um, Epstein, should we look in the cards? Like, well, how would
Sure.
we ask a question? What? There's a million questions, but
Well, I would say ask the question as will they uh, ultimately the whole thing really damage him in a way that
okay.
counts? Because people say big deal, they're there, they'll hide them, who cares? Really, it doesn't matter.
Uh-huh. Well, it's interesting because I get the sun, and in this case, I don't see the sun as a positive energy. It is the light. It is like putting the light over him. And it will really with the hermit, this is gonna put him in a corner. I felt like this is gonna make him feel very isolated. And then the Five of Wands, to me, I immediately pick up as defense, defense, defense. It's just gonna have to spend his time defending himself. So that's the energy that I see. Like the sun would be actually, it's gonna be visible, available for everyone to see, almost like that big clarity, but in a spotlight kind of way. And I mean, when I look at that Five of Wands, I even see interesting what it was telling me is even within, well, which we know is true, within the Republican Party, some inner fighting, like inner fighting in terms of them fighting with one another. Um, and then the final card was the King of Swords, and I'm getting justice with that, the actual impact with the court.
Well, that's really interesting. Yeah, because isn't
That's interesting.
the Five of Wands in a deck that I have, it's like these people fighting with a dragon. It's like the idea that you're in this battle to try to protect yourself in some way, right? It's a strife card.
And in some decks, the Five of Wands is like five different people, or in the Rider-Waite, I believe it's the case, five people with five different color shirts, which
Oh,
highlight the fact that everyone fighting for themselves.
I see. I see. Right, right, right. So then you get the people like Marjorie Taylor Greene and a few
That's where I
others.
was going with it.
And then so the outside, the inside. Yeah, yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I do know from the astrology, the fit is 100%, and it's to his great detriment. And it's very ironic because it has this karmic accountability pattern in that he's been abusing women his whole life, and we just needed to wait for that planet to lock in, to come in to
Mm.
force him to pay. And what you don't want ever to throw on top of that energy is Saturn going for a visit there. Not a good
And
idea,
that's what's
which is
happening. And that's what,
that's going to happen in 26 and in 27. I don't think this issue ever goes away. I think even if this guy disappears, he keels over, and we never see him again in the Earth plane, the issue will continue. It'll probably damage his family. There's no end to this, because that he is now permanently linked, and so there's no escape. Yeah.
I mean, I don't think there's any doubt in anyone's mind that he is involved. Like
Yeah.
when,
No.
when Mark tweeted, I have a bombshell, Trump's is in the Epstein file. Well, who was surprised here? Like, is that really a bombshell? We've seen photos before.
Oh no, there's no question. I mean, the the amazing thing about the uh, how do you say this? The time we're living in is how scandalously people lie. They literally tell you the opposite of what you're seeing. It's like you go outside and they say, look, there are pigs flying. And you say, no, they're not. Yes, there are. Look, you can see them. No, you can't. They just keep repeating it. And this, among many, it's a persistent thing that keeps happening. But, everything has a timeline, I think. You have to wait long enough, for things to show up. And when I see, especially planetary stations, correlated to a major trigger, then I look for future ones. And in this particular case, with this planet, if it stations in a good place for you, you're good. If it stations in a bad place, you're screwed because it stays there. It'll be in the same degrees in 2032 still. It's just edging along, like it takes a little thing, comes back, just moving barely.
Yeah.
It's part of the orbit where it feels almost like it's completely stuck to his detriment. So here we just have to be patient. This is another thing that I notice with people. If you say to them, be patient, oh my God, I can't be patient. If you say it in April and you tell them, oh, it's next January, but now it's November, so we're close. We're almost there. So it's not like we have to be
Yeah. I mean, like
that patient.
I mean, one way of looking at this is every day that passes by, that's every day we get closer to the midterms.
Correct, correct, which is another topic. Maybe that topic, now that you've mentioned that, whether we do it now or maybe we should,
Yep.
because the biggest worry, and it is a genuine worry. I saw I didn't read the full article, so I'm reporting on more headlines and quick scans. I have to now study a little more, but it's this article in the New York Times where in the front page it says that what Trump is doing, I mean, this guy's such a scoundrel. I mean, he's just such a born criminal. He does everything in the same way to skirt the laws, to cheat. So he is connected now. A lot of people in his administration who are 2020 election deniers, who still insist that he really won that election, which is not true. It's a complete lie. So he is now trying to, using their agency to mess with the 2026 elections, to try to, control the vote or suppress the vote, or worse. I mean, who knows? Because they sometimes start talking about grabbing voting machines, things like that. I
And they
feel
were, sorry to interrupt, but there was, he actually talked about uh, uh, going against mailing voting.
correct. That's one of the many things, 100%.
Yeah.
But so my feeling from what I know is that he won't be able to accomplish it because of, again, his cycles. His cycles deny this kind of thing. But I'd be curious to hear what you have to say about whether or not we will have the elections. And, it's almost impossible for them to win the election. If the election is normal, fair, they lose.
Fair
There's
and
no
square. Every time I've read on it, I saw the elections happening, and I feel like, I mean, there's no elections that's 100% fair. There's always like something here and there, but generally speaking, yes. I feel like, I mean, let's see, will the elections happen as the midterms? Will the midterms happen? Yeah, I mean, I got the sun again. Um, the lovers is the choice. It's
right.
what is an election is about.
Mhm. Right. And what else? Anything else?
Well, there's, I pulled a few more cards because I wanted to get more energies, and I'm gonna show them in different manner. The High Priestess is also there for the point of view of um could be some behind the scenes stuff, like it could be something related from behind the scenes. I feel like we cannot what's the word? We cannot discount the fact that there will be try attempts behind the scenes. But I mean, look, when you get the sun and the lovers, two suns actually, to me that's like a strong yes. I feel like this high priestess, that's something that's running a little bit in the background, but I don't see actions to it. The Nine of Cups is the wish cards. To me, it's like as it is. So again, I don't think it's ever 100%, but by and large, I feel like it will happen. And I mean, also kind of the next steps is, do I see the house turning blue? Yes.
You see the house.
The,
What's your
the Senate, the Senate, I would say right now I feel like yes, but I felt it's interesting with the House for me, like it's very clear, but the Senate, I keep telling myself that I need to keep looking at it.
Yeah, well, let me put it to you this way. The House alone would be catastrophically bad. The Senate and the House would be catastrophically bad to the square or to the cube power. It would be extremely
Yeah.
problematic for them, for him and for them. Um, and all of this, by the way, assumes that he's able to navigate through his health patterns, which at his age and in relationship to what we're seeing, the way he's
Yeah.
behaving, because he is much lower energy than he's ever been. That's usually the telltale sign when you see a person like a fading light bulb. And it's funny with this guy how he always walks into his own karma. Remember that he built his career on insulting Jeb Bush. Oh, he's really low energy. Well, now he's living the same thing.
Yeah.
It seems like everything he throws at people, he eventually experiences himself. Like the universe takes revenge upon him. So
And
that's where he
I
is.
would
And
I would add to that because that ties to something that I've seen and shared on my channel is made particular attempt to mark disabled or any kind of handicap or challenged people. And better be careful here,
Of course,
because
of course.
I've seen him on a wheelchair. I've seen him as having, a physical challenge.
Yeah, wouldn't surprise me one bit, and it's curious now that, the latest, I guess I'm shifting here a little bit. I don't know if it'll confuse things too much, but uh, do we tell me if it's okay to switch to the Ukraine
Of course.
situation?
Yeah,
The
yeah,
reason being, I came across this thing with really, really excellent reporting on what transpired in the recent meeting between Trump and Zelensky, because they held it in private instead of doing it in the public White House, that whole humiliation thing in February.
yeah,
And this
yeah,
person made the point. He said, even from February to now, Trump is like, he was like a 60-watt bulb where he used to be a 100-watt bulb, and now he's like at 30, if that, because apparently in the meeting it got really heated because Trump had taken a call from Putin, and Putin said that they want all of the Donbass, like even what they haven't conquered yet, they want it all. So Zelensky said, no, we're not giving you Donbass. And part of it apparently is that it's really impractical because the Donbass is like a militarized citadel zone that Ukraine has built, and there's just no way in hell they're going to give that up. That's what prevents Putin from, if you give him the Donbass, then he starts working on Kiev, which is further in. So basically, Zelensky said, no, not doing this. And the person's point was that the further you go back with Trump and his, macho domination theme, he might then have gone public and said, well, Zelensky, he should just do what I tell him. He doesn't have the cards. Instead, he didn't say any of that. He just said, well, we couldn't come to an agreement. And even though it's pretty clear that Trump wants Putin to win in Ukraine, it's clear. He throws a lot of distractions, like he said, oh, I'm going to give you some Tomahawk missiles so you can attack better.
yeah,
No, he didn't get the
yes,
missiles. So he's
no.
basically lying, but now he doesn't even have the energy, to follow through and like really put pressure. So as a result, this fits to me in what I've said many times, which is that Zelensky just has to wait till next year. He's got to wait it out, because once the planets shift in 2026 and put a ton of pressure on Putin, he's the one that's going to have to come to the negotiating table and take much less. And he might end up being thrown out too as a result. So I don't know what you think about this, but that was
No, that makes complete sense to me. I feel like I agree that I actually always saw a positive outcome for Ukraine. Um, there's you saw also, and that actually I read on that meeting in Hungary, I didn't see happening, and now it's not happening. So that's also not a good sign. Um, it's very challenging with Trump on this Russia-Ukraine, because it flip-flops like it's just like you can't you
yeah.
can't really follow. Um, I feel like Zelensky is gonna have the upper hand. There's also something going on that has not really been mentioned in the news as much, but it is meaningful. Is the European Union is fast tracking the candidacy of Ukraine to for it to apply to be part of the EU. I'm not talking about coming yet into the EU, but there's a long, difficult application process, and just to get to that first step of the application, and that's coming in December.
Yeah, no, there's no question. I mean, it's I think, well, okay, like let's be clear here too. The whole thing of the Russia Putin imperial power. I mean, this is some kind of joke. The guy has, after 4 years, 5 years, he's got a sliver of the country, and he's supposed to be some great world power. He can't conquer Ukraine. He can only conquer a small part. So as a result,
And how many years to conquer a small part? It's just so much
exactly.
effort to conquer.
Yeah, and this reporter was saying, this guy's a real expert, and he was saying it's such a joke because he said they're actually asking for something they don't have. They want Ukraine to hand over the entire Donbass, which he hasn't been able to conquer with his supposed, huge army. So, and then people say, well, he's going to invade Poland. Really? Like, how is he? Anyway, to me, the Russia threat is overblown. But then you bring in the fact that it's an authoritarian regime and so, very criminal too. They're constantly involved in
Yes.
forms of criminality all over the world. And to me, the Russian form of governance is like almost like a drug cartel. They spend all their time, murdering people or manipulating in the background, disinforming as much as possible. It's totally awful. So fighting them is important. But to your point about Trump's how do you say this? His incoherent approach. So he goes back and forth a lot. There does seem to be a thing though where he always seems to land on supporting Putin, but even there, he does things that are working against himself because he has Marco Rubio now in charge of the topic, and Marco Rubio is known to be very anti-Russia. He doesn't like Russia, right? So when he went to meet with the Russian Lavrov, they of course got nowhere. Within seconds, they
No.
walked out because Rubio said no way. So then, Trump would need to send someone that is pro-Russia, but he didn't do that.
Correct.
So it's like it's all over the map, the situation, at the
It's
moment.
all
And
over the map. Yeah.
yeah.
I have a question for you. It is kind of a side detail, but I don't know if you could pull that up because I don't know if you have her chart. But Melania Trump got involved with the situation of the children. If you remember during the Putin Trump meeting, she supposedly wrote a letter to Putin about the situation with those missing children. It's interesting to me, it's just more of a psychic hit that she said in a press conference or at some other point that she had a direct line of communication with Putin. It made me feel psychically that is there something going on right now with Melania Trump? I almost feel a shift. So sorry I didn't mention that to you before, and I'm sure I'm making you look at kind of unprepared, but if you have that
No,
info, I think it will be interesting.
yeah, I'm looking at her chart now. She's um, the day is known, but the time isn't known, which can definitely you do lose some information. It's not nearly as relevant when you're doing personal charts. You can do really good readings without a time of birth, but for this it would be helpful. But yeah, there is. So your question is, what might be her role, or like how are you framing the question around?
Yeah, my question is with her quote unquote bragging about having a direct line of communication with Putin, is there i- is, is she playing a role at all? Like, or is she
Yeah,
being played? Or what's the purpose of saying that it energetically I feel like something is weird or off. And so I'm just trying to understand what it is, but I haven't found it.
I think, and this is definitely true from her planets. Uh, I think she probably is going rogue on Trump. I don't. This is like a
Mm,
rebel. It's a rebel initiative. Like she's gonna do what she wants to do, and I don't think he has the energy anymore. To that's another
to fight
example
it.
of what he might say. Hey, what
Yes.
are you doing? This is no. Well, whatever you're doing, no harm. Maybe he doesn't think there's any harm. This is because she's a Taurus with multiple planets in Taurus, and she has the Venus, which is the ruler of Taurus, at the very end of Taurus. That's where Uranus is roaming around. Uranus is remember I was telling you how separately it's an
I can read
entrepreneurial,
it.
go your own way. Well, for her, it's inclining her to just do unusual, rebellious, this is what I think I'm going to do. I don't care about the consequences. Now, here's where it could get dicey for her too, though, because she has she has the moon in Capricorn. What we don't know is what degree. It's anywhere between the very early part or around 12 degrees. So Saturn next year is going to run over that moon, like squaring it, which is challenging pretty much all of 2026. So either it means her attempts to do something just fail, or even worse, she could get a lot of pushback, or it just doesn't work, and then she fades back into the background, and we don't hear about her again as anything all that important, right? But the answer to the question is, at the top level would be, she's gone rogue. She's doing a Sarah Palin on her husband.
It's interesting because I had the Hierophant, which is the authority, and then the Wheel of Fortune, like a shift in that energy. The Knight of Wands, it's not good for her. Like she's, like you were saying, like she's getting hurt. Well, it's like I can see what you mean here in the cards, where there's it feels like the Wheel of Fortune is also karmic. So there's also something going on with her relationship with the authority that's leading to her not being happy.
Yeah, and by the way, this aspect that she has, Uranus to Venus, right now, uh, in addition, so it's Uranus actually is conjoining her Venus at the moment, right? So that's the impulse to go your own way. But she was born at a time when Uranus was in Libra, so that's a very relational sign. I strongly suspect she and Trump are not even they're probably really separate right now. They're in a separate
Oh yeah,
zone, much more than usual,
and
because
they
that,
for
yeah, like Uranus does this even in the cases of people that have good relationships. Uranus will come in and some life development will put them apart for periods. It has this quality of creating independence, either through fate or through a person's willful intentions. So yeah, so she's in her own zone basically at the moment. Yeah.
oh good. Um, I was just curious. I don't know if you want to finish with that. With Venezuela, have you looked at it recently?
I haven't. The only thing with Venezuela, the only thing I looked at it indirectly in the sense that it's just the way this administration is, on the one hand, doing what they profess they're going to do, which is basically doing whatever they want, whether it's legal or accepted or not. But also, it's another topic that keeps the media focused on this outrage or that outrage. And so then, sure, but then Epstein moves to the background, or
Yep.
whatever it is he wants to hide, especially the Epstein thing, because I'm pretty sure now I have to go back and check, but do you know when the first boats were hit? Let me see if I can
Oh,
find
I
it.
felt like that's a couple months ago. I felt like that's it's not that recent.
Okay, let's
Let me
see.
look it up.
See, this is an interesting question because, okay, so September. So uh, the initial strike was September. So to me, September 1st, this in part would have been to hide the Epstein, like put your mind somewhere else, bring about, talk about these criminal drug people that are trying to hurt us and we're dealing with them.
Yes.
And so then it gains traction with the MAGA aggression, even though they're always talking about how they don't like wars. But it's amazing how Trump says he wants to be the peace president and he renames the Department of the Defense the Department of War. Yeah,
More.
this is completely nuts. So, but yeah, the fact that it's September 1st, you're in the heart of the matter, because had it been April 1st, then you couldn't relate it as much to the Epstein thing happened in the summer. So I think he, in fact, isn't that around the time, September 1st was around the time that the House was refusing to take the vote, and they were not they
Yes,
were,
yes,
yeah.
yes.
So I think that's what it is, it's in that sense it's a distraction from the Epstein.
Wasn't it? I feel like there's something also with the Nobel Peace Prize went to this lady from Venezuela, which also happens to be more of a right wing, you know, point of view, let's say, or working from a more authoritarian point of view. So it was. I just feel like energetically there's something here where it's very strange. It's bombing Venezuela. He wanted to get the Nobel Peace Prize. This is the leader of Venezuela that gets. You see where I'm going with this? Like, it's just so very strange. And then listen to this. She thanked Trump in her speech. And do you know who submitted her nomination for the Nobel Peace Prize?
I don't know that. Do you?
Marco Rubio.
Okay, that's really. So
So,
so you feel, is that like the
well,
incoherence showing up
I
again, or is there a secret conspiracy?
no, but I
Yeah.
feel like there's a connection. I feel like with Venezuela that there's. I feel like he's claiming that it's the narco traffic situation that he's taking care of, but what really he wants is a regime change, and possibly some oil. Who knows, right? And I feel like maybe then after that, it's an intuition of mine that there's a connection between. It just feels too big of a connection. Marco Rubio nominates her. She thanks Trump in her speech.
Yeah,
He
yeah, it makes
wanted the
sense.
prize. You see,
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense that that there's likely a link, and but at the same time, it shows you how incredibly complicated it is to attempt
yes,
change anywhere. Because think about it, they're bombing these boats. Venezuela is too weak to respond. Like if you were bombing Chinese boats, they would probably shoot at your boats, but they're bombing the boats. But that's a big step from changing the government. I mean, that guy can hang in there and say, okay, fine, I'll just tell the boat people to be more careful.
but Trump also admitted also at the same time that he had the CIA work on indirectly in Venezuela.
Yeah, no, for sure, for sure. There's almost certainly a link. That's actually thank you for bringing it up. It's one that I'm gonna see if I can
Yes,
dig a little deeper. What the heck happened there between Marco Rubio and Trump and this lady, and yeah, all of that. I mean, the lady is the
and there are
opposition leader.
CIA and the CIA. It just feels like it's one. I haven't been able to unpack the whole story. I just know that there's more to look into. Yes.
Right, and by the way, what just popped into my mind about his chart is that this situation with the cycles he's under right now, which are he's up to his eyeballs. November is all constantly like this. Fits with what you said earlier for a major surprise or shock, and one of the areas could be related to military because it's to his
Yes.
Mars, and Mars is his aggression. When you're shooting at things, you always see Mars. When Uranus squaring, or Uranus, yeah, squaring Mars, what it is, which goes into December, January, is pretty persistent, going around the bend into February the whole time, and the risk of a military incident, something going badly wrong as a result of your aggression, gets magnified. So yeah.
Or does he want more of more attacks, and I feel like he's going to blame like narco traffic and drugs coming into the US, and that's why we had to do this. But um, I mean, that would be at a minimum, if it's not an accident or an incident, a distraction from everything else.
A distraction. Yeah, no, makes a lot of sense. Yeah, 100%. That's exactly it. Yeah, that's how I would see it. All right. Well, it's been a spirited discussion as always. let's let's resume again soon.
Yeah,
Maybe like I would say November, maybe a month from now could be really interesting because that month is going to be loaded with so many. I know from the astrology, so many different things happening, and so yes, it should be very interesting to reconvene then. All right.
awesome.
We'll say goodbye to everyone for now.
Thank
Bye,
you.
everyone. Thank you for watching.